Hello and welcome back to the 4th episode of the Northern Steel Podcast. I am your host with the most, biggest, bodacious booty in town, Dominic Paskowski. And with me is my brother with the biggest, baddest boobies in town, Christopher Paskowski.
Hey, I represent for my big old bees. Let's go.
Let's go. We got those body oddies, don't we? Anyways, let's welcome back to the show. This has been our 4th show. It's April. Is it April? No, it's March. What day is it today, Chris? March 30.
March 30th.
March 30th today?
Yeah.
We're in this kind of weird lull period right now, which we'll be in a little bit later. We're kind of in between the end of free agency and the draft. So we're just going to stall for like 50 minutes, I think. I don't know what we're going to do.
Stalling. Me? Stalling?
Oh, wait! I have something to talk about.
Go for it.
Just the new overtime rules came into effect this week. New overtime rules. They had some other rules that they implemented this week in the NFL. Rules that do not matter or that I don't care about, like kickoff rules and something else. But they made a new overtime rule for the playoffs.
So they're changing the kickoff rules again, huh?
Oh, that's what you want to talk about.
Yep. I don't care about anything else but kicking off.
The new overtime rules for the playoffs are stated as each team will now get a possession in the playoffs no matter what. Chris, how do you feel about
that? So, I'll be honest. I'm a fan of it. I really like the idea. I think more often than not, it kind of takes away a lot of the argument of, oh, they won on a coin toss or we lost because of a coin toss. So adding that aspect in there, maybe being able to extend a game, I really enjoyed that idea.
Sure.
What about you?
I disagree. I actually don't like it. It's not that I don't like it, before anyone, before our 6 listeners flame me for not liking it. The only reason why is because if you are a Steeler fan and you've heard Mike Tomlin talk about it and you've heard TJ Watt talk about it and other defensive people, they've both mentioned how the game is long enough to win it on its own, and it's a whole team game, right? As a defensive person, like TJ Watt said, they should be able to win the game. They should not be giving up touchdowns to lose the game in overtime. That's what they're paid to do. It's what they pride themselves to do. They should be able to do it. And if you want to talk about, but the Chiefs and the Bills, it was back and forth and Josh Allen didn't get a chance. I agree with you that it is very criminal that Josh Allen did not move on into the next round of the playoffs last year because what did he throw? Like 9 touchdowns and had like 11 incompletions or something?
It was an unbelievable postseason run by Josh Allen.
For 2 games. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And is that a crime that he didn't move on specifically? Yes. However, Steeler fans, just think about it for a split second. If that was Ben in his prime, and we were in the playoffs, and it was back and forth like that, and we go to overtime, and actually, don't even think about overtime. We score with 13 seconds left, and the other team gets the ball, and we're ahead by a field goal with 13 seconds left. How irate would you be to let the other team drive like 30, 40 yards in like 10 seconds?
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's something that definitely shouldn't happen. I mean,
that's absurd.
I'm not saying
that's absurd.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, your defense should be doing enough. But like the thing is, Dom, and we saw it even a lot throughout the season. Defenses or whatever the dang play calling in those final seconds, I could probably name you a couple games off the top of my head, are just straight up trash play calling. And then it allows the team to just like get in those positions of scoring. And it just makes me so angry.
But my argument is that then you deserve to lose. That's my argument.
Sure.
The Bills score with 13 seconds left and let Patrick Mahomes come on the field. First of all, they didn't kick it in bounds, right? So they had they took 0 time off the clock at the ball at the 25-yard line. And then did not cover Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce on back-to-back plays.
Why would you? They're scrubs.
Yeah, exactly. They're the worst players on the team. Why would you cover them? Mm-hmm. But they did not cover them, and they got in the field goal range in like 10 seconds. Kicked the field goal, go to overtime. They get the ball first. They score a touchdown. Game over. If that happened to us as Steelers, I'd be like, what is wrong with us? What is wrong with our play calling? Why can we stop it? We deserve to lose that game. And I know a game you want to talk about for like an ending that way is when the Baltimore Ravens beat the Lions. And Justin Tucker kicked the 66-yard field goal. Whoa, Justin Tucker. He's the best kicker in the league. Whoa. That dude's got 3 legs because his wiener's so big. Whoa. You know, Justin Tucker. Yes, that was a great kick. However, they were like in 4th and, I want to say 4th and 18? 4th and 19? It's something really
I think
long.
It was more than that. It was like 4th and... I thought it was like 4th and 30 or something like that. It was like astronomically bad, and then you're like, oh, I mean, the Lions are bad, but they're not that bad. And then it's like,
and then they give up a pass on that long for a first down.
Wasn't it pass interference, or was it actually a cut?
It was a completed pass.
I just try to block out any good memories of the.
It was a completed. It was like a 30 to 40 yard pass completed, and no one is around him. What? Are you kidding me? And it's like you kind of deserve to lose. So my thing with the overtime, also, I feel like now I'll play devil's advocate with myself, right? With overtime, I think it's like all it's doing is delaying the game, because if you go in overtime, if you want to take Chiefs and Bills as an example, Chiefs score a touchdown. Let's say Bills go drive down, they score a touchdown. Now it's sudden death. Next team that scores wins. All Chiefs need is a field goal. They win the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just kind of delaying the inevitable. However, there is to play devil's advocate, there is some strategy you can use. You can, as a first team, you can go down and score a touchdown and try to do a 2-point conversion right away to put pressure on the other team, or the other team can score a touchdown.
You're speaking hypotheticals, like different ways to approach it.
Yeah, hypotheticals. Hypothetical strategies like the Chiefs, when they got the ball first, they could score a touchdown, and go for 2. You know, and then if that's a ballsy strategy, but they could do that. And if they get 2, that puts pressure on the Bills to go down and score a touchdown and get 2. Right? Or if the Chiefs score a touchdown and kick the extra point, then the Bills go down and they score a touchdown, they can go for 2 just to end it. Right then and there. So there is some like extra layers to it. You can, or you can just keep playing it safe and score back and forth, and it's just the same thing.
And I will say that was the part of the whole overtime rule that I really didn't enjoy. The fact that it was like, all right, both teams get a chance to go for it, but then it's sudden death. It's like, what are you changing? It's just like, oh, so you're just adding more steps to the same thing that's happening. Right, like the outcome will be the same, like, and maybe it won't, but then who knows? Maybe because of this rule, more games will end in ties, more likely, because you're already wasting so much clock, and I know overtime's already not.
It can't end in a tie because this rule's only for playoffs. They won't end a playoff game in a tie.
No, you're right. My bad. Yeah. I wasn't thinking about that. But no, like Dom said, I really like that idea when they proposed that, to where having that 2-point conversion. Either they can go for the extra point and then the next team will get to go, or if they want to win the game, they have to go for 2. That would be a good one. Or, maybe let's get our special teamers involved, maybe do like a kicking competition. I know we talked about this earlier in the week, but maybe having like starting at a certain yard line and seeing how many kicks in a row you can get, or something. I don't know, just make it almost like a shootout-esque kind of a thing like you see in other sports.
I think that'd be really cool. And I think they won't do it. I think that'd be cool too. And with Boswell, I would trust him to win most of those games, unless we're going against 3-leg Tucker. But I don't, again, if you got to that situation, if that was a hypothetical, and you're a Steelers fan, you're like, well, now we're going to lose because we're doing a kickoff against Justin Tucker. Well, we shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. That's just what I think.
I think if they really,
I was going to say you have 60 minutes to win a game, so win it or lose it.
I was going to say if you really want to make it interesting, maybe you do that kickoff thing, and then you can elect one person from your team to stand in the ear of the opposing kicker and just like say anything blasphemous to like really throw them off their game. So like just throw like Cam Hayward behind Justin Tucker and just have him like ah! And then like right before he kicks in, see if that does literally anything for the guy. That might be kind of fun.
I feel like I would show Justin Tucker like the 4 highlights of him missing a field goal. That's what I would show him.
Oh, that would end his career.
Like on a laptop. That's how I'd psych him out on the field. All right, so there we go. We had something to talk about. Now I guess that's it. See you guys later.
But wait.
Oh, there's more.
There's more.
Just before we started the podcast, it was announced, breaking news, Bruce Arians is retiring from coaching. He is instead moving on to the front of office at Tampa Bay, and they've already appointed Todd Bowles as the head coach in Tampa Bay. That's nuts.
Crazy. Especially with Mr. Brady. Brady might as well become the first ever coach quarterback duo by himself.
He really should.
He's old enough.
The thing that's nuts is like Bruce Arians is like, oh, I don't know what we're going to do with a quarterback, blah, blah, blah. And then Tom Brady came back and he's like, oh, yeah, we're set now. And their team looks good again. Also, the NFC is super dumb weak. And he's like, oh, we're making a Super Bowl easy. And he was telling people, oh, I'm not trading Tom Brady. I'm not doing that. And then he steps down to be a front of office role. I think is very interesting and surprising. Good for Todd Bowles, man. He's done a good job with the defense. I think he deserves another shot at coaching because anytime you coach the Jets, it sucks. Good luck to you.
They're just a mess of a franchise that desperately needs help.
Right. Like the Browns. So I think anytime you... Oh, what did I say? Did I say that? Sorry. The slip at the top, I think.
Maybe?
Is a Freudian slip, I think. Anytime that you do something like that, I think. So what I read was, I lost my train of thought. What I had read was that Bruce Arians, this was actually his dream. His dream was to step down and give the head coaching job to someone on his team, but he wanted to do it when his team was in a good position. So I find that really interesting that the Buccaneers are in a good position, so he wanted to give it to a coach that deserves it, so that maybe they have a good year and that coach can go. He can move on if he wants to, or he can do whatever else. But it's almost kind of I read it at first dude, this guy's crazy, but it's kind of selfless too, because the Bucs could very well win the Super Bowl this year.
Very well could.
You've got man, how many teams in the AFC? 16, right? You got 13 of them that are good. 13 of them are gonna, and spoiler alert, I don't know if we're one of them. We'll find out. But you got 13 of them that are good. And they're going to duke it out. And now I'll say we're one of them. Sure. Sorry, I just thought of 3 other teams. They're all going to battle and fight each other. And then in the NFC, you have the Buccaneers, maybe the Packers, but they've lost a lot of people because of Aaron Rodgers' money. Maybe the Cardinals. Maybe the Rams. That's it. So they can make it back.
And here's my thing, because I was thinking about this. I have a little conspiracy theory going on with this whole Bruce Arians thing going on. So, do you remember the incident back when Buccaneers played the Jets and then Mr. AB went off the field and, basically took off his clothes and jumped up and down?
It sounds familiar. I feel like that would be all over TV.
Play the clip.
I don't have.
All right.
I don't have those capabilities.
No, that's fair. I was really hoping that would kind of come on faster.
Also,
anyway,
this is a podcast.
That's right. So then, obviously, all these things started coming up about how Coach Arians is not a player's coach. He's kind of a dick, and he just AB's showing all of his text messages between them, and how he's like, "Yo, coach, I'm injured," and he's like, "I don't care. We're paying you money. You get out there." And he's like, "But coach, my foot's inside out." And he's like, "I don't care. You're getting out there." And so what I'm thinking is, my conspiracy is this might be like a a Gruden incident. Just kidding. It's not going to go that far.
No.
But maybe some more things where like AB's x-rays came up and then he was just so embarrassed by it to where AB's like, listen, if you don't stop coaching right now, these are going to surface. And he's like, about your foot? And he's like, yeah. And then he's like, man, I just don't even care anymore. I can't deal with this anymore. So then Bruce Arians like, can I be done? And then now he's done. So that's my conspiracy. Yep.
Well, you know what? I don't know if it has legs, but neither did Antonio Brown. So
all I can say is expect it on Good Morning Football probably next week.
This is really breaking news. I just find it funny. I just got a tweet about football stuff going on just now. That
lay it on me.
That former Commanders, or Washington football team, as we all know and love them, their former quarterback, Alex Smith, said this about Washington's organization. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of distractions. That entire organization, everything surrounding it, and deservedly so, it's been flawed the last 20 years. So he just called them a poverty franchise, I think.
You know, the way that you started that sentence, saying ex or former Commanders quarterback, I was like, damn, is Wentz done already? Like that was like my initial thought behind it. I was like, wow, that was really quick. He's like, maybe if you would have stuck with the Washington football team as a name, I would have been more about it. But
I'm actually going to quit. Actually, so I'll see you guys later.
It's like this sounds way too much like an XFL team. So I'm kind of out of it. I want to be a Bison again.
Oh, you might as well be. They're not doing anything. So that kind of clears up the NFL news. Like we said, there's not a lot going on in the NFL news.
No.
There's still some free agency stuff going on. The Steelers signed a player. Whoa, is it Tyrann Mathieu? It's not. I'm sorry. They still has not been signed. Will he be signed? I don't know. I want him to be signed. We all do. We all want Tyrann Mathieu to be signed. But remember, Steeler fans, if he's not signed, Edmonds is not that bad. We talked about it. He's a solid player, and he's probably going to be cheap. Nobody wants him either.
Also, you got to remember, too, that the longer a player remains unsigned, typically it's either a team's either just going to go all in and like give this unbelievable amount of money, or it could be a situation to where his value just comes down and we can get him for super affordable, which would be really nice. But like you said, Edmonds isn't a bad option either. No. I mean, all you Edmonds, I am a former Edmonds hater. I will admit it. Hello, my name is Chris Paskowski, and I used to hate Terrell Edmonds.
Welcome.
Thank you. I have now seen the lights and realizes that he's not going to be a Pro Bowler. He's not going to be a guy who gets you 7 picks in a season, but he's healthy always, and he provides pretty good support in the backfield along with Minka.
Now that's a first-round pick if I've ever heard one. That's okay. Sorry.
All right, let's. I'm trying to get off the hate bandwagon. I want to stay there.
I like Edmonds. I think he's solid. He could be really cheap, and Matthew might get cheaper. So he has talked to Mike Tomlin. He says Mike Tomlin's a cool dude. So you never know what could happen. We did sign Gennard Avery this week. You know what? I wasn't even going to talk about it, you guys. I really wasn't, because it seemed like such a who cares signing, kind of like Gunner. No offense, Gunner, my Mr. No Regrets man. But I watched his tape today, like right before we did this podcast, his highlight tape that YouTube page had made, and I was honestly like kind of surprised. I mean, if you're a Steeler fan and you watched the outside linebackers last year with Taco Charlton and Derek Zuska, whatever you pronounce his name, Tuscaloosa. Derek Tuska. If you watch those two guys and you thought, hey, they did pretty solid in rotational pieces, like you and I did, then you would also be honestly impressed with Avery's tape, because I was watching his outside linebacker tape and I was like, huh, not bad. Really not bad.
He's quick. And that was the very first thing that I noticed. And like nothing about his stats really jumped out at me. But at the same time, all of his highlights were just, zooming by the tackles and being able to get in there and get those sacks. And I saw a very interesting thing brought up to where, if he's a special teamer, that's fine and all, because obviously we could use that. But at the same time, we don't know the futures of like Taco, because we only signed him, like you said, or Tuska. So a great rotational piece in there too. I'm not upset about it, and another thing that I personally like is the fact that he has history with the Browns, because it kind of gives him that he already knows the AFC North, which is nice. So he understands the rivalries, the division, everything like that. So it might bring a more competitive edge to him. So
he looked very decent for the role he plays mostly. He looked very decent for a rotational piece. So, good for them. But moving on from free agency, like we talked about last week, because nothing's happening. If we sign Tyron, you'll know about it. You'll probably know about it more from maybe the videos we post. If you guys do listen to the podcast, make sure you do follow us on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on TikTok. We try to make some funny posts, some funny shorts, some reels about what is going on with the Steelers, and kind of like quick comedy opinions about the Steelers. If you listen to the podcast, you won't be all the way upset by it. Not to say people were upset, but we made a short, or a TikTok, I guess, last week about the Steelers maybe not even having a winning record this next year. And I had a lot of Steeler fans. I mean, it had 0 views 2 days in a row, and out of nowhere, it kind of just like blew up and had 10,000 views. And a lot of the comments though were like, "Well, the Steelers are gonna win. They've won with Mason and Duck, and they won with all this, and they've never had a losing season." I understand. You don't have to tell me that. I've watched the Steelers. We've watched the Steelers since Big Ben was on the team, our whole life. We have never, ever in our lifetime, while watching the Steelers, seen a losing season. We know how good they can be. We know the organization. You don't have to tell us that. The only reason why we made that joke that they may not have a winning record is because of how stacked the AFC is. We've said this before, and I'll say it again until people actually like listen to the podcast. We recognize how we've probably improved as a team this year, but the AFC has doubly improved, and they're so strong. And we'll do like a schedule prediction at some point down the line here. But you never know what could happen. Mitch could come out and he could just light it up. You really don't know. I just think like on paper, we might be losing a lot more games, but mostly because the AFC is so crazy, not because of us. Which kind of translates. Which I'm getting excited. Which transitions into the NFL draft. That's what we're going to talk about next. Because we're not going to talk about quarterbacks today, but in talking about quarterbacks, if that's something you want this year as a Steeler fan, keep this in mind. If we do have a losing record next year, maybe it's bad enough to be top 10, but not because our team's bad. Because the AFC is just so crazy loaded and expensive, which is going to hurt them in the long run, other teams. But maybe we end up getting a top 10 pick while building next year, and we can get an even crazier quarterback. Just something to think about.
I agree. Do you care if I announce the next segment that we got going on?
I do not care.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So Dom and I, like we said in previous podcasts, talk a lot, probably every day, about football, and especially now that we have this hobby and that we're making so much money from this podcast, thanks to all of you guys.
Loaded.
We're just talking constantly, trying to think of ideas and things to talk about. So we thought of this segment, especially with the draft up and coming, to kind of do like our top players. But what I mean by that is like that is so repetitive. Everybody does like, these are the top players in the draft. These are the top players by this position. And, after talking, I was like, no, scratch that. Let's not do that. What we're going to do is we're going to each week from here until the draft comes up, pick a positional need that the Steelers need, and then kind of go through our top. Dom will go through a top three. I'll go through my top three, but it's not like, hey, these are the top people at this position. It's more of like, here's a top person that I could see us drafting later on, like a day 3, day 2. And so Dom will kind of go in and discuss that earlier rounds, like potential, day 1, day 2 talent, and then, kind of seeing what we could be excited for in the later parts of the draft.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's something fun for us. We'll pick, we're about a month away right now. So I think we'll pick 4 positions to talk over. And tonight we'll be talking about receivers. I want to preface this with this is kind of, if you do end up listening to the podcast, this is kind of, just for fun, and maybe give you some names you don't know, maybe some names you already do know, kind of build more hype around what other Steeler fans are thinking, because we're Steeler fans just like you, and maybe we're thinking of the same names you are, and that's fun to listen to. I do want to say this though, and it's just a little bit of a tangent. Chris and I, we're going to say some people that we like. And I don't want to. I'm not here to tell you that we know better than everybody else, or we think we know better than everybody else. But I do think, in the short years that we've been following the draft, that we have a pretty good track record on seeing who's successful and who is not. Most
Especially
of the time, yeah. Most of the time, we've been watching. That tweet, they gave Todd Bowles a 5-year contract, so he's staying in Tampa Bay. But for the short while we've been watching the draft and trying to keep up with it, for the most part, there's players that we've wanted, and the Steelers, if they draft them or don't, they have been successful. Now, again, I'm not saying that we're right every time. There are 2 main instances where I remember being extremely wrong. One was being in 2013 when we drafted Le'Veon Bell and Eddie Lacy was on the board, and I thought that was stupid, but I was the dumb one. And also when we drafted TJ Watt in 2017. I thought that was dumb too, because I thought we were drafting him just for a name. And look at me now, a big clown. I love TJ Watt. That was a terrible, terrible take. But there are some players that we've liked. Some examples being last year, I love Pat Freiermuth. Chris loves Pat Freiermuth. We all love Pat Freiermuth. He's great. He's a new tight end. The better pick was Creed Humphrey. It really was. That was the better pick. And if you get a center there, you don't need to get a center in the 3rd round for Kendrick Green. You know who me and Chris wanted in the 3rd round? We wanted Nick Bolton, who also went to the Kansas City Chiefs and lit it up as a linebacker there. These things happen. You could say it coulda, woulda, shoulda all day long, and we're not the GMs. But those would have been better picks, and those are people that you and I really wanted. Also, not to hate on Terrell Edmonds, but when we drafted him in the 1st round, I was also scouting safeties for us that year. The better safeties in my head, watching the tape and looking at stuff, was Jesse Bates III and Justin Reed. Guess who's still better safeties than Terrell Edmonds? Jesse Bates III and Justin Reed. And they were drafted in the 2nd and 3rd rounds.
The thing that can get really frustrating too about the Steelers and how they draft is, I do think they look for a skill set for sure, but they're also big time into character and kind of, I feel like more often than not, especially once we get into the later parts of the draft, I think of some drafts where I'm like, who is that? And then they're like, wow, this guy he's a hard worker. He's been through it all and everything. And I'd say they do a good job. I feel like most of the time they do pan out, but that can be a little bit of the frustrating side of being a Steeler fan. Is I feel like especially once we get to the later parts of the draft, it's not so much about the names that you hear. It's more of just honestly kind of like randos you know what I mean?
Especially with this position, because we're going to talk about wide receivers, and if you're a Steeler fan, you know that the Steelers draft wide receivers fairly well. They really pick up some good talent here and there. Maybe not the best attitudes, but they pick up good talent. And just to kind of drive that point home more for us, we obviously love Juju. We thought he was a really great player. I remember when they drafted Juju that year, I was like, who is that? Granted, I didn't really keep up with the draft. You might be like, how did you not know who Juju was? I didn't really keep up with the draft. I was just kind of starting to get into it, trying to find more players. I had no idea who that was. But the only player in my eyes drafted it that year that is better than Juju is Cooper Kupp. The rest are Corey Davis. He was in the first round. He's not good. Mike Williams for the Chargers. He's all right. Zay Jones. No. Chris Godwin. He's okay. So, I mean, actually, Chris Godwin's really good. Sorry. Chris Godwin's really good. So maybe Cooper Kupp and Chris Godwin. I think I was thinking of Marquise Goodwin. That's my bad. Chris Godwin's really good. But you know what I mean? It's like they find gems here and there. When they drafted Claypool, of course, like, which you can't really count, but, you know, CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson was in that group, but they went way ahead in the first round. That was our only pick that was our first pick that year in the second round. So they find good talent. So we're going to try to talk about wide receivers. And I personally think since Chris has some later round wide receivers, I personally think that we're going to draft one early because we're in dire need since we just lost 3. But watch us not pick anyone we say here, like Chris said. I'll go first. I'll try to make this quick, a little snappy. Chris might have some more details on it. The first one is also the most unrealistic. It would be because I think he is going to be a first-round pick or a super high second-round pick. And honestly, I'd be a little mad if we went wide receiver in the first round with all our needs. But that's the Steelers. You never know what's going to happen. That name is Jahan Dodson from Penn State. Now, I have watched Jahan Dodson's tape. I've watched his play. I mean, there's a reason why he's a top receiver. There's a reason why he is projected first round. If you watch his highlights, Chris or anybody at home, there's not really... I mean, it's very impressive. It really is. There's not really a thing that he's bad at. Besides the one-hand catches, I mean, yes, he has sure hands. He can catch in traffic. He can create intense separation. He's got very decent speed. He has great route running. He can block. I mean, it's like, what can't this kid do? He can do deep routes. He can do short routes. He can do slant. It's like he can kind of do everything. To give you a little more context on this man, Jahan Dodson, he runs a 4.43, and in his last year at Penn State, he had 91 receptions for 1,182 yards, 13-yard catch average, with 12 touchdowns, and with his longest an 86-yard touchdown, or an 86-yard catch. Yeah, very, very good on a Penn State team that wasn't very good. No. I don't think there's anything else to say really about Dodson. He just he's a great receiver. Somebody's going to get him. Someone's going to be really happy with him. It's probably going to be someone we don't like. But honestly, you know, it's probably going to be the Chiefs.
Realistically, yeah.
This is probably the Chiefs that get him. But that is an option, I think, if they go in the first round. A more realistic option for my next two, these would be second round picks. This guy might not last to our pick in the second round. This is someone I want more, even though he's not the popular fan pick, but it is George Pickens from Georgia. George Pickens, I really encourage you, if you're on the fence with George Pickens, so Chris is begging, so am I. I really encourage you to look up his tape, okay? George Pickens is 6'3". You know, I didn't even mention Dotson's height. Dotson's 5'11". So George Pickens is 4 inches taller. Quick math in my head.
Good job. I was giving you the nod.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, he's 6'3". He ran a 4.46, I believe. 4.47. 4.47 40-yard dash. Played at Georgia, and if you watch his tape, man, the thing that I like about him is he is a true outside receiver, kind of like a Z receiver. He kind of runs deep, does curl routes. He plays the outside perimeter really, really well. And he's got really strong hands. He's a big body. He boxes people out. He's got strong hands. He's kind of like what we want Claypool to be. And Claypool isn't, because Claypool just jumps in the air. Pickens, he just really kind of, he bullies people. He's got a good attitude. He blocks people into smithereens. The thing with George Pickens is his stats aren't really that great. Every year they've kind of declined. Now, to be fair, in 2021, he before the season started in March, he tore his ACL. So he came back in the last 5 games, then all those being playoff games. And I'm sure he was still kind of recovering. He maybe just wanted to play because he didn't really go off in those games. He had 1 reception for 5 yards, 2 receptions for 41 yards, 1 reception for 9 yards, 1 reception for 52 yards. Pretty much like a catch a game. So he didn't really blow up in those games he came back for. In 2020, he had 36 receptions for 513 yards and 6 touchdowns. The year before that was better, 727 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I guess that is a cause for concern maybe, is, he went downhill, plus he had the ACL injury. But I don't know, man. His tape looks really good. And in my personal opinion, I think we need a Z wide receiver more than a quick slot guy. I think we've had enough of those, personally. Now, I know you're saying that because maybe I know you're laughing, Chris, because maybe a lot of your guys are quick slot guys. I think we need a Z guy more, because here's another hot take for you that a lot of people don't agree with. I think Claypool is better in the slot. I don't think Claypool should be our Z guy, because everyone says, well, that's his role. That's what he should do. Yes, that is what he should do, but he's not very good at it. He jumps up and he leaves his feet, and he's a 50-50 guy, mostly on the missing side. But in the slot, he really succeeds. He really does.
Hold on now. Let's see. Let's give him this one more year, because I want to see how he'll do with a guy who can actually throw the football more than 30 yards.
I agree. But I'm just saying, he does succeed in the slot. I think Pickens is a true outside guy. I don't know if we need another fast, short inside guy. However, my last pick will definitely be there in the second round, if not the third, but probably not, because he's getting a lot of traction right now. It is Sky Moore. Sky Moore is from Western Michigan. He is a staggering 5'10", and he runs a 4.41 40-yard dash. I watched his highlights. I'd encourage you to watch those as well. I don't like to make wild comparisons and wild logistical jumps about who players are, or comps, I guess. So I don't want to say this, but this is truly what he reminded me of, and it's going to be blasphemous, I know. His play reminded me of a little bit of Antonio Brown. Okay, put down your pitchforks. Hold on. I'm not trying to say that he is the next Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown was an anomaly out of a 6th round, and it's insane that he was as good as he was with his intangibles, very similar to what Sky Moore's intangibles are. The only reason why I'm saying that is watching him run, he has sneaky speed, kind of like Antonio Brown did. It's like he's not the fastest guy out there. He's faster than the two receivers I just named, but he kind of he positions his routes. I know he's a big Antonio Brown fan, where he kind of fakes you out with his speed and then breaks and gets a lot of separation on his breaks and his route running. Great at slants, great at running routes in general. He has very good concentration for his size. I was really impressed. This was somebody who actually I wasn't on board with, because he is the popular Steeler pick to draft, and I just want to be different, and I don't want to see us draft Sky Moore. But watching his taping, and I was like, well, you know what, man, he is good. He stays really concentrated on the ball when it's in the air. He makes tough catches. He makes good route decisions. He knows what he's doing when he's got the ball in his hands, and pre-play, he looks really smart. It's I think if you got any 3 of these guys, Steeler fans, I think you can be pretty happy.
I do got to say, I am kind of surprised with the shift in your tone towards Sky Moore, because I know you and I have talked about him previously and watched the highlights, and we weren't necessarily like blown away like maybe we had been for the other guys. But yeah, no, good take on it. I like that.
I think I watched it again, and I could just see like it's something about that's sneaky, like Antonio Brown. It's the way he runs routes is just kind of like it's like, oh, like I think every cornerback that lined up against him was like, this guy's not going to burn me, and then he does every single time. So and he just had good concentration on the ball. So I don't know. I thought he did really well.
Gotcha.
Okay, Chris, why don't you take it away with some later rounds?
Yeah, so like we stated before.
Wait. I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. I don't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to quickly lay out Sky Moore's stats from his last season. 95 receptions, 1,292 yards, 13.6 average with 10 touchdowns. Okay, go ahead.
All right, book it. Done. Draft.
Okay, go ahead.
I do got to make a comment about my boy George Pickens, though, because find me a better wide receiver, or find me a wide receiver with a better bull rush than George Pickens.
I know, I'm saying.
Seriously, don't even watch his highlights where the dude catches it or he dives for it, where he's just completely amazing and perfect. You can you definitely tell he's one of my favorites. But literally, there's like back-to-back clips to where this man will just go and he'll just bully someone and push him like to another dimension, like basically to the shadow realm. And the dude just does not come back from it. He's so embarrassed. And then you know what George Pickens does? He whispers in his ear and he goes, "I'm George Pickens." And that's all he says. And it just strikes fear in a lot of people's hearts. But moving on. So Dom kind of covered the first half. Guys that you could potentially see us drafting in day 1, day 2. The guys that I'm going to be talking about are people that I feel like we could still be excited for if the Steelers decide to draft later. So we're looking at late day 2 and then all into day 3. And yes, Dom is talking about maybe switching Claypool over to slot, and also, us and maybe needing not a slot receiver, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit. All right. I'm going to be talking about only slot receivers.
Hell yeah. Stick it to them.
At least 2 of my guys. So one of my favorite people that I looked up, and let me just preface this by saying I actually did probably way too much research on all of these guys. So the first guy that I really, really like that I could see in a late day 2 is my boy Calvin Austin III out of Memphis. So a little tidbit on Calvin. He is even more staggering than Sky Moore because he stands at a whopping 5'8" and not only that, but yeah, 5'8". So we got basically a Darren Sproles out there. Or maybe Darren Sproles' little cousin. Emphasis on the little.
Golly.
Not only that, but he's only $162. So, yeah, he is small and skinny and definitely going to need to bulk up a little bit once he hits the NFL. But the thing is, the dude is unbelievably athletic. So I was watching his tape and I noticed that they played Calvin Austin at the X receiver position on the outside, which first off was very surprising, judging that literally the cornerbacks covering him literally stood a whole head taller than him. But it did not matter. I think Calvin Austin can be used in so many different ways. And I think he's way too small to be on that outside. He's really fast and shifty and elusive, and has honestly super good breakaway speed.
Talking up on that break, now.
Yeah, do it. And I encourage anybody else listening to this to definitely watch his tape. But the dude was a track star at the University of Memphis, and he shows a lot of versatility in his open field running. So the combine kind of got him clocked in a little differently. They had him at 5'9", $162. But
there we go.
when I say fast, I mean he is fast. He ran the 40 in a 4.32 seconds. It not only this, but this was more impressive. He had a 39-inch vertical. 39. Okay. I don't know about you, Dom, but that's more than half of his body height. So screw this 5'9" talk. All right. If you add that together, we got a 9-foot receiver that's 162 pounds. I'm running away from that because I'm more so scared of really tall, lanky people. But that is beside the point. He also had a 11'3" broad jump. Okay. But anyway, keeping up with him, he was a walk-on at Memphis, and he's a 2-sport athlete at a D1 university. He received All-American honors in track. Austin played off of reserves and the bench his first 2 seasons, but after working hard, he gained a full scholarship. And then he saw a ton more action his junior year, where he gained All-American first-team honors. And in 2020, he led the team with 63 receptions for 1,053 yards and 11 touchdowns. And I kid you not, in his highlights, he's literally mossing guys.
I am sorry. I'm trying to hold in my laughter. I'm just watching a highlight where the other team was trying to down a punt and they didn't down it and they all left it there, and then he picked it up and ran around everybody for a touchdown.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I put about him is I feel like he could be super good in the run game. And to me, it's almost like what we wanted Dree Archer to be, but Dree Archer, yeah, I know. But, so that was the stats for 2020, and you're like, oh my gosh, like 1,000 yards, that really doesn't happen all that often in college. I mean, other than if you're a top pick. Well, he led the team again in 2021 with 74 receptions, 1149 for yards, and 8 touchdowns. And he received, first team all conference from there. So I think Calvin Austin would be a really excellent late day 2, early day 3 candidate to pick up. I think having him at the slot position for the Steelers would be super awesome because he's shifty and fast, and he can run straight underneath people's legs because he's that short.
He looks really good, man. I can't lie to you. I think he looks. It's a great find. I think he looks great.
Yeah, it was unbelievable what I found. Coming in at number 2 for a late draft pick, I went with my boy Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yes, sir.
Out of Kentucky. Just so you know a guy's going to be a baller when they just refer to him as Dale. All right.
Heck yeah.
Dale's a good guy. He's another great option to fill at that slot receiver position, and I say that because he is also 5'8". He's a little more bulky though. He's a $180, so he has a little bit more muscle to him. But based off of the highlights, he looked to play a lot more into that slot role, and they had him more on the inside rather than the out. So it was kind of nice to see him in that role, and the dude excelled. He has great open space awareness, and he makes the most out of every play. I feel like watching his highlights, it's not just a simple, try to run up the field, dive for whatever. The dude's cutting back. He's running into guys if he doesn't feel like he can get more. He's just doing whatever he can to, make more of his play. And the dude's also not afraid to lay out. I think I saw him dive for about 5 or 6 catches on his highlights, and
he's literally fighting this guy right now. Like he cut a deep pass. I encourage everyone to watch these highlights that Chris is mentioning. He caught this deep pass and he's trying to stiff arm this guy and he wouldn't let go, but he just kept punching him to get him to let go. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing, and you can definitely tell he leaves it all out there. I think I saw an interview with him and they're like, "Yo, Wan'Dale, how do you do it?" And he's like, "I don't know, man. It's a God-given gift." And I think that was a phenomenal answer.
Ooh, he looks strong too for being that little.
He is, and I think size, height-wise, is the biggest concern. But I mean, I think it all goes away for how shifty he is and his play style.
What was his 40 time again?
He had a 4.44.
Dang.
So he's pretty quick. Not quite as fast as Calvin Austin, but he is fast. He was a Nebraska transfer, so he transferred from Nebraska over to Kentucky.
Sure.
And in there, here's what really blew me away. Because, whenever you look up receiver stats, especially first rounders who go, you'll see like 1,000 yards, maybe a little less than that, and maybe like 60 receptions. So he set a record at Kentucky with 104 receptions, 1,334 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
Golly.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But apparently that wasn't enough because it only earned him second team all SEC honors.
Wow.
Yeah, he was the 2022 Citrus Bowl MVP with 10 catches for 170 yards over Iowa.
It's probably because he plays in Kentucky, to be honest.
Yeah, right. And then in 2019, when he was a freshman, he only started about 4 games, but he had 40 catches for 453 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Lord.
So I mean, as a freshman, only starting 4 games, it's. I think the stats are there. The dude's an absolute playmaker, and I would love to see him in the black and gold.
Yeah, seems tough. Small but tough. Mighty Mouse.
Exactly. And then the last guy that I have on my list is a little guy out of Tulsa, and his name is Mr. Josh Johnson.
Josh.
Now, I again encourage anyone watching, listening to this podcast to watch highlights of these guys. Because obviously anything that we say, it's just kind of our breakdown of the player. But I was quite impressed with Josh Johnson. I feel like if we were to get him in the later rounds, maybe like 5 or even a 6, I'd be pretty excited about it because the dude can straight up play. I didn't really get the dimensions on here or the 40. If you want to look that up, Dom, so that way you can provide some more stats for people, that's awesome. But Josh Johnson, gosh, I mean, I think Tulsa does a great job of producing wide receivers, and I only know that off of the one guy that we have, Deontay Johnson. But God, they're so similar. I was watching his highlights, and I was like, I just kept seeing DJ out there, and I was like, yeah, the dude is shifty. He's able to create a lot of space, and he shows a lot of grit when he plays there. I think something that makes DJ so great is his just awareness, and when he gets into the open field, he can break it for another 15, 20 yards, and I think Josh Johnson brings that exact same play style. What I really like about him is the fact that he did play with Deontay. So obviously they would have that chemistry there if Josh were to get drafted. And, they also had the same wide receiver coach. So it's obviously homegrown talent there in Tulsa. They have some things working over there. But Josh Johnson is definitely a late round pick that I would not mind to see us getting.
He kind of runs like a gazelle.
He does. It's very like honestly, it kind of reminds me of AB a little bit, the way that he runs sometimes.
No way. He prances around.
Yeah, but I'm talking like AB when he does his prance. You know what?
Like when he's scoring a touchdown?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But that's just how he runs all the time.
Yeah. I did want to
sorry, I was gonna say there's no 40-yard time. But if you had it. No, but if you have did you say his stats from last year already?
I did not.
Okay, do you have them?
I do not.
Okay, he had 83 receptions, 1,114 yards for 6 touchdowns.
My gosh. Granted, different schools, not quite like in Alabama, but I mean, I think they can play. I do have some honorable mentions that I'm not really going to speak a lot on, just why I put them there. If you get a chance, watch David Bell. He's definitely going to be a top, probably day 2 draft pick. Probably could see him in the second round. He's out of Purdue. The dude's really talented. Go ahead and watch his tape. And then I have Alec Pierce, Pierce out of Cincinnati. The dude is also really good. He has a lot of height to him. The reason why I mentioned him is because we don't know who we are getting in the draft at that number 20. And I know QB has been passed around a lot. And so obviously he's played with Desmond Ridder. And so obviously it might be a good idea to get someone for him that he's comfortable with, but you never know. And then the last guy I have is Dontario Drummond out of Ole Miss. Kind of the same thing. He's played with Matt Corral, and he definitely plays that, number one receiver really well. So definitely give him a watch. I do want to say if we are gracious enough to get the Kenny Pickett, I wouldn't mind if we waited on getting another receiver and picked up Mr. Jordan Addison next season.
Yeah, I'll say that.
But that's just high hopes.
Well, before we go, Chris, I do want to make a slight correction for anybody who actually listened this far in the podcast. As you were saying that Josh Johnson was teammates with Deontay Johnson, but Deontay Johnson did not go to Tulsa. He went to the University of Toledo.
Oh, Toledo. Never mind. Well, you know what? Forget what I just said. I obviously am uneducated, and I don't watch football, really.
We just pretend.
What can I say? I just pretend.
On that note, surprisingly, this podcast went for a long time, considering how I didn't think we had a lot to talk about. So we're going to wrap it up for this week, but thank you for listening. And next week, we're going to pick a new position to talk about, give our kind of our top three for both Chris and I. Remember to follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on TikTok. It is the Northern Steel Podcast. I'm your host, Dominic. This is Chris. We wish you a good night.
Peace out.
Peace.